right. Hi, everybody. Very happy to have a lot of people. Let's wait a few more minutes so to give people the chance to get settled in before we start this.
Get your coffee. Cookies. It's still winter, so cookies are fair.
Indeed, indeed. Certainly for those kind of sessions can be handy right before lunch.
Yes, yes. Energy bar. I mean, we have to be aware we are in between of the people and their lunch, right? So
indeed. but I'm confident that the content is strong enough to keep people interested.
to forget the hunger.
Indeed, indeed. Let's wait a few more minutes.
And I can do this.
All right. I think we can start. It's amazing. First of all, I want to thank everybody that joined this webinar. We're fully aware that we are in between you and your lunch break, so we will do our very best to forget your hunger. Let's start maybe by introducing myself. For the people who don't know me, I'm Mathieu. I'm a manager at Dualoop. For the people who don't know Dualoop, we're a consulting company, and we focus on helping other companies build better products and better teams. So the typical topics we help companies with is if they need to train their product team or train their other teams that work closely with the product team, if they need to a product manager right away, or if they want to have someone that can help them reflect on what would be the ideal organization to deliver great products. A big part of what we do is also trying or building a product community in Belgium. So if you haven't done in the past, I'm looking forward to meeting all of you in one of our product apéros that happen monthly in our office in Brussels, or to one of our trainings. But I think let's stop here the marketing message around Dualoop and myself. I'm very eager to introduce you Büşra, who is one of those famous product people. And I have to be very honest, the first time that I was in a call with her, I was a bit starstruck because I've been reading her posts for quite some while, and I'm sure that a lot of you have been doing as well. And today we have the honor or the opportunity to hear her content and be able to ask questions. So I'm going to ask all of you to put your questions in the chat, because at the end of the session, we first saw quite some time to have a Q&A. So the agenda of today will be, Büşra will explain us a topic that is, I think, on everybody's minds, on what's the link between strategy and prioritization, and what can help us to fix what. So I can imagine a lot of people will have questions. After that, we will have a fireside chat, and then after that, we will have a Q&A. But let's move forward with this webinar. So I propose, Büşra, that you take the word from here.
Thank you, Mathieu. Yes, I remember that day when we talked, and it was such a great conversation. And I remember we talked about imposter syndrome, right? I think maybe just a little bit of a delighter for everyone. We all have imposter syndrome. I have imposter syndrome as well. Everybody has imposter syndrome. Let's live with it. Let's handle it. All right. So, and then let's start with the topic of the day, which is strategic prioritization. That's what you're here for. And I'm going to start with cursing. And when a presentation starts with cursing, then actually it already sets the tone about the topic, right? I mean, damn prioritization. This is something that maybe some of you are really actively saying out loud every day, every time you look at the backlog with 14,000 items. And I'm not kidding. I once worked at a company where we had more than 14,000 items in the backlog, 14000 and more. And then you have to prioritize that. And you're like, oh my God, where should I even start? I mean, I would just want to kill the whole backlog, right? And then you look at it and think like, oh my God, damn thing. And you start cursing. Or you're supposed to present the items on the roadmap, right? You're not working on the backlog level, but on the roadmap level. And you're supposed to tell your manager what's going to come next. And you're like, oh my God, you're sweating, right? You're sweating. What should I even present in here? You have no clue, and you get stressed a lot. And now let's look at it from the other side, from the leader's perspective. I'm pretty sure that some of you here are product managers or product people in general, individual contributors, and some of you are on the leadership side of the whole table. And you as a product leader, you actually sweat over the roadmap too, right? Oh my God, we will have another roadmap discussion. And then I have to tell I see that whatever, it stresses you out. Or every time you see a feature that ended up on production, but you thought like, hey, we discussed it and we said we will not build it. Why is it on production? Why did it even end up there? You might not necessarily think that it's a prioritization problem, but at the end of the day, it is. And you might not say it out loud because you're a leader, right? You're not expected to be cursing, but hey, you're a human. So inside, you maybe think like, oh my God, can't my team prioritize better? Either in these words or like something related. If that's you, I can assure you, you are not alone. The reason for that is actually quite at hand. The reason is prioritization is difficult. And it's going to stay difficult. Even after this presentation, it's going to stay difficult. There's nothing in the world that could make it super easy. It can make it easier, but not super easy. And in fact, any consultant that tells you that they can turn prioritization into an easy thing, you should run away from them. But if prioritization becomes painful, that's a different level, because then you have a completely different problem. It is difficult, but it should not be painful. And that's what we're going to talk about today. I will show you what prioritization actually is. And I can tell you it's a cascade of decisions from strategy to backlog so that you are able to prioritize. And to show you how serious I am with this cascade thing, I built this whole presentation not on PowerPoint, but in Miro, and it has the shape of a cascade. And this is how you can also see the agenda. So we will first have a very, very small theoretical part. And there, I promise I will only go through first principles. So this is going to be one of the rare presentations about prioritization where I will not teach you any prioritization technique. I will only shortly talk about first principles, and you will notice that you can even do a PhD in prioritization if you follow the theoretical part. And then we go under the line, like beneath the line, we will talk about this decision-making cascade. As you can see on the agenda, we will start with strategy. We will continue with strategy, and we will continue even further with strategy. Before we then talk about the topic, hey, discover and research, how does that fit in? Then we get to the roadmap level. And only then, as you can see, the very, very last line of this cascade is the backlog level. And then we will finish with a conclusion. That's our plan for today. I hope everybody's ready. I hope you've got your coffee, your snacks, your energy ball or bar or whatever, and can listen well now. Good. But of course, I will do a little bit of a cliffhanger here because I want to mention something. Yes, that's me. I'm Büşra, and I'm product coach, trainer, and advisor. I have worked with many companies in the past, both hands-on as a product manager and leader, and now in the past 5 years with different companies, from startups to scale-ups to enterprises. And what I'm going to talk about today is a pattern that I'm seeing everywhere. When I get in, I usually get in because somewhere there seems to be a prioritization problem. Our team cannot deliver. It doesn't ship something, but it doesn't create any impact. Or our team always prioritizes the small stuff and wants to go for the quick wins, but they don't understand how to know what a big win is, what a big impact is. There are these patterns, and they get me in for that. But I know immediately what the point behind the prioritization problem actually is. And that is the reason why this presentation actually, why I created this presentation, to show you these patterns of what should be done so that prioritization can be only difficult but not painful. Good. So I promise we'll start with a PhD, a little bit of theory, first principles thinking. What is prioritization? Think about it for yourself. When I say prioritization, these points that I wrote down here, does this sound familiar? Is this the direction that you think of when I say what is prioritization? Preferences, what's my preference? What are the decisions that we have to make? So maybe somebody says trade-offs, which is good. Like when somebody says trade-offs, I'm like, yes, you got it. You cannot have everything, right? Prioritization also means trade-offs. But then at the same time, the majority of people say something like this. It's a sequential order of items that tells us first work on this, and then on that, and then on that. Like this backlog thinking, right? Yes and no. These are the effects or the outcomes of the activities that you do in order to make a decision what should be worked on and what not. And these activities are basically, on a high level, 3 activities that we consider as the activities that we do when we try to prioritize a list of items, whatever these items are. I don't care. Opportunities, outcomes, solutions, whatever these items are. It's these 3. We categorize, we filter, and we sort. So what does that mean? So categorization is, you organize items into buckets, and because we're cool and love using jargon, we call them cluster. And then once we label them, we call it cluster analysis. But that's essentially it. So we look at a bunch of items, we cluster them, put a label on them, and every time a new item comes in, we look at a new items, we decide which cluster it belongs to or which bucket it belongs to. So that's categorization, basically. Then filtering. The filtering has the aim to reduce the number of items that we have to handle. And so basically we set some criteria, at least one criterion, and then we check every item against these criteria. And this way, when we say this doesn't meet the criteria, this is out, then we reduce the number of items in the list. And last but not least, sorting. And that's what I mentioned with, yes, this is putting items in line, in some order. Typically, again, meta thinking, first principles thinking, right? Typically, we think here of ROI, return on investment. Well, default, when I say ROI, people think about money. How much money do I get for the money that I spend, right? Money in, money out. But actually, in fact, you have to define what return and investment means. For example, return could mean, when you're running experiments, return on investment could mean the strength of learning for the time and effort that we put in to create the experiment. That's also ROI, right? So you have to define what return means and what investment means. First bucket of first principles, the 3 activities that we do in order to prioritize a list of items: categorization, filtering, and sorting. Now, second and last bit of first principles, continue with the PhD, It's about the frameworks. We've got so many frameworks out there. Why? Well, all of them have some nuance that they look at from a different perspective. But at the end of the day, we can boil all of these frameworks down to 4 core concepts: scoring, matrices, ruling out, and calculation. So scoring, as you know probably, right, the most famous ICE or RICE or PI or whatever food abbreviation, anything where you really, again, set some criteria, score those criteria, and then try to score and sort those items along the ROI that you believe the items will get based on the criteria that you have scored. Typical scoring. Matrices. I wrote here 2 times, but there are also 3 times 3 matrices, like 4 times 4, whatever type of matrix you come up with. And in general, this is a relative prioritization technique. So it's not about the absolute number of the thing that you put in there. It's more about, do we have more evidence for this one than for this one? Do we think this is going to be more impactful than that one? So it's really prioritizing the items against each other and not on an absolute scale. The result of any matrix prioritization is a categorization. You know, like first quadrant, second quadrant, third quadrant, fourth quadrant, they say something, right? So that's the category that you put the items in. Then ruling out is basically the same as filtering. You set criteria and say, yes, this is in or this is out, and you filter. And there are some more very strict ruling in and out frameworks, like, for example, bin stack. If you don't know it, check it out. It's pretty cool. And then there are some less strict ones, like you could use a scoring system in order to then decide what goes in and what goes out. And finally, calculation. The most famous form of calculation is writing business cases. Write business cases. I love business cases. They are full of assumptions and everybody can trick them and do something with it and pretend something's going to happen that's never going to happen. But anyway, write business cases. Calculation. Whatever form it is, right? So maybe a back of the envelope calculation or traction model by Ashmore, whatever you want to use. But at the end of the day, it's typically used in order to understand the business impact of what you're trying to achieve or the usage impact. So it's more on that side of the prioritization world. Good. That's it about the PhD. We've got 2 points here, 3 activities: categorize, filter, and sort. And you will, throughout the presentation, you will see those, and they are highlighted in red. I will use them to explain to you what we are trying to do. It doesn't mean that's the only thing that we can do. For example, I will say, here we can filter, but it doesn't mean that's the only thing that we could do. We could sort and then filter, or categorize and then filter, for example. But you will see those in red. And then we have the 4 framework concepts. I will not explain what I'm doing. I will use these core concepts in order to show you examples of what I mean to make something that I say, to make something abstract that I say more tangible and more applicable for you. That's how I will use these. Okay, but in general, summary, PhD, 3 activities, 4 concepts. Good. I hope you're ready. Now we'll move down the line and get to the decision-making part. And of course, I will start with a quote. There's a rule in presentation, so you have to have an expert, a guru, somebody saying something that is meaningful and fits into the concept of your presentation. I have a trick here. I have a quote in a quote that makes it 2 quotes, which makes this presentation twice as good as any other presentation that you have seen ever before. That's the rule. That's physics. That's the rule, and you just have to live with it now. Good. So In one of Marty Kagan's SVPG blogs, in one of his articles, he was talking about product strategy. And as you can remember from the agenda, we are starting with strategy now. So here's a quote by him that I really like, in which he quotes Richard Rumelt, who's the author of the book Good Strategy, Bad Strategy. So, quote, every good product strategy begins with this focus. Quote, good strategy works by focusing energy and resources on one or a very few pivotal objectives whose accomplishment will lead to a cascade of favorable outcomes. Richard Rumelt. If the leaders are not willing or able to make these choices, then the product strategy is doomed from the start. Here's the first link between strategy and prioritization. The same is true for prioritization. If the leaders are not willing at this high level, at the strategy level, to make choices that also come with trade-offs, yes, then the prioritization on the team level is doomed from the start. Because prioritization has more to do with the execution of the strategy than with random thinking or random frameworks, whatever. Okay, so keep that in mind. About the cascade, what we're going to do now is the following. Whenever I slide to a side, that means we're staying on the same level of the cascade. Whenever I slide down, that means we go one level deeper, one level into the detail. That's how you can follow, through following the movement, you can follow where we are going in the cascade. And we start with strategy. We think long term. What is our focus? We have to make choices on a very, very, very long-term view. This is super difficult stuff for the leaders here who are watching this webinar. But still, you have to make your bets. Of course, we don't know how the future is going to look like. And also this varies from industry to industry, what you think future actually means. Are we looking into the next 3 years? Are we looking into the next 5 years? Or maybe we have to think of the next 10 years because that's how our industry works, right? And of course, we don't know how the future looks like, but we have to create our hypotheses about the future, about the trends that we believe are important today and that become unimportant tomorrow. We have our vision, and then we have to place our bets. We have to say, this is our target group where we'll focus on. This is not. This is the problem space that we're actually trying to solve, like big problem space with this value proposition, this long-term value proposition. It's not that problem space and that value proposition. It's this problem space and this value proposition on a very abstract level. And of course, we need to understand if the business model is the right one for that, how the cost structure and revenue streams look like, who we are going to partner with, and so on and so forth. This is super difficult, hardcore stuff. And I have to really say to any individual contributor who's in this webinar, please be aware that this is super difficult stuff, and there might be things that don't make sense to you. And if that's the case, then ask your leader. And dear leaders in the room, try to make it understandable for your ICs why you bet on this and not on that. You don't have to share everything, of course not. Like, you should not share everything, but the pieces that will help them then later in the cascade to make the right prioritization choices. Then based on these bets, we still have to figure out how we get there. You can call it roadmap, you can call it choices, you can call it whatever, the pillars of what we think is important. But we have to have some sort of a plan. And it doesn't have to be the plan for the next 10 years, but some rough direction. For example, Amazon wanted to enter into the Swiss market. And there was this decision to be made. How will Amazon enter the market? There was rumors here that they will build warehouses in Switzerland, and then that this would be the way how they would distribute the products in Switzerland. Turned out they didn't. So they decided instead to not build a warehouse in Switzerland. That's a decision. That's a choice. We will not build warehouses in Switzerland. Instead, we will use the warehouses in the countries around Switzerland to ship the products from there into Switzerland. And in order to do that, we will go into partnerships with the Swiss customs, with Swiss delivery and shipping companies, and so on and so forth. That's a choice. That's a very long-term choice. And that is an example of how these two connect. Your bets, we will enter the Swiss market in some way. Yes, we will do that. And the steps how to get there. We will not build warehouses. We will send the goods from around Switzerland. That's an example for that. Okay, now it's the first time in this cascade that we move down, so one level deeper. We are still on the strategy level. We continue with strategy. What's your midterm focus? For example, this year. Okay, so if your long term is 3 to 5 years, then we could say your midterm is maybe a year. Again, depends on your industry and how you define midterm. What we do is filter. We start filtering. Let's say we have some business objectives for the end of the year saying, grow market share, fulfill more demand, grow revenue per customer. First of all, yes, I know they are competing in itself, but that's reality. That's what we get. Right? So we have to live with it. And then now we have to filter. Whatever item we look at, maybe opportunities, outcomes, whatever, I don't care, initiatives, we have to filter for those that will help us achieve these objectives. For example, through scoring. Just as an example, yeah, you can do whatever here. You can create business cases and calculate the impact and sort by impact of the based on the business case, and then filter. I don't care. Just do something, and then filter against those ones, or filter those out that don't help us achieve any of those goals, or be more strict. Do a strict ruling out, like with BinStack, for example. Accept only those ideas, only those themes, initiatives, outcomes, whatever, that pay into all of the objectives, for example. Yeah, it depends on your company what you prefer, but the first thing that we really have to do is filter. We have so many ideas, we could do so many things. Filter. And once you have filtered on this higher level, we go one level down, you continue with that. Because, hey, okay, how do we get there? That's a year. What's the next step that we could do? So what are we going to focus now? What's the short-term view of the strategy? Again, filter the hell out of everything. So for example, let's say if you're using OKRs, let's say your quarterly objectives are create a happy customer base, grow mobile advertising, reduce time to experience the core value for new users, and then all the items that you have in your mind that could end up on roadmap, you have to filter against the impact of on your OKRs, as an example. Okay? So we are filtering. This looked quite like a cascade, like a waterfall-y thing. Of course, like in real life, it's a back and forth, right? And we also keep iterating on the strategic level based on learning. So it's maybe not fixed, and then you have to adapt and so on and so forth. But the main thing that you want to do is you want to reduce the number of options that you have. And I just mentioned that. Oh yeah, so basically what we get from this is a filtered list of opportunities or solutions that pay into strategy. And that's exactly what we want, right? So filter it down, but anything that ends up on this list is already paying into the strategy, and we know that. But then I just mentioned, like, it sounds like quite waterfall-y. So what happens with the learnings that we do while we are now trying to execute on the strategic plan? choices down to the short-term, now focused level, right? Are we agile anymore? Well, the core of agile simply means inspect and adapt, right? So you ship small things, you see what happens, you integrate the learning into your planning, and maybe you ship other stuff then because you've just learned that whatever you didn't work. Anyway, what do we do with that? Well, we still follow the same logic. We filter the hell out of everything. If you're using opportunity solution trees, what do you think? Where does the product outcome come from? You cannot just say, today, I had a good breakfast. Let's do whatever. You can't do that. It has to come from the business filtering, the business goals that we have filtered so far. Or you go one level more advanced and use an impact map and take your business goal and break it down until you've got your product outcome or actor outcome or whatever, and then you go into discovery mode. And then you build solutions. Either way, like this already immediately connects whatever you're going to do with the business goal. And again, that's filtering. You could, I mentioned it in the beginning, also just categorize or sort first and then filter. You could go through analytics, you could do user research, market research, etc., and first categorize what you find, and then filter, or sort first and then filter. Like, for example, with a Kano model. So let's say, again, this is just an example, right? How this could look like if you wanted to apply it in your world. Let's say you work on a calendar product. So I worked at Doodle in the past, so it's like, let's say you work on a calendar product. Okay, let's say the business goal is create an AI strategy for our company. Okay, that's probably pretty much so 2025, right? So because by now we all have an AI strategy anyway, and then the strategic choice is to focus on the persona of busy product managers. Now you go out, you do your research and so on, and you find your buckets. You fill your buckets, dissatisfier, satisfier, and delighter, with your findings and ideas. And then you come up with so many ideas. And at the end of the day, you are there and like, which one should we take? And you figure out, hey, these two ideas, AI optimizes your calendar based on your goal, and AI suggests who you should invite to the meeting. You figure out with the research that maybe these are the two that could have potentially the highest impact and create something very valuable for your focus persona. So you decide to put these on the roadmap. That could be a way of categorization first and then filtering, right? So you categorize, dissatisfier, satisfier, delighter. Maybe your management even says like, hey, we need more features that create a boom effect and more delight, and we've got the basics right. Don't spend too much time on the basics, which even helps you better to say, okay, then let's only look into the satisfier and delighter categories, right? This is how you can filter, aka prioritize, based on strategic input and strategic decisions that were made. And this brings us back to the point, hey, what do we have now? We have a revised data-backed filtered list of opportunities or solutions that pay into strategy. It's revised and data-backed because now we have some evidence that backs it up, what we should build and what not. And still, all of the items pay to strategy. Great. But now, for everybody who says, yeah, but what about the frameworks? We've got so many frameworks. Really, okay, let's talk about frameworks. I don't care which framework you take at this point. We have such a solid list of filtered items that pay into strategy. Whatever you want to take, right? So slap it on the list. Use rice ice, use a scorecard, whatever, I don't care, okay? Whatever you prefer. Here, however, I have an overview for you. If for anyone who wants to take screenshots, take a screenshot. An overview for you of different prioritization frameworks that help you with with the one or the other activity, so that you know, hey, I could use this framework for doing that activity. And as you can see, some are some are in many different buckets. For example, impact mapping can help you categorize, but it can also help you filter and so on. Good. Okay. But there's a reason why we have those frameworks, right? So what do we do now? We have all these items and it's still too much. We cannot work on all of them. Exactly. And that's why I'm saying, like, yeah, look for those that have a lot of impact. We want to work on stuff that creates value for the customers and the business. So find that stuff. Find that stuff, do whatever you want. Take a matrix, a impact, whatever matrix, impact effort, impact evidence, impact, I don't know, my stakeholders will love me, whatever matrix you take. But then here, I don't care about the low impact stuff, right? Look for the high impact stuff. Again, it's a strategic choice. Maybe there is like a maintenance mode stuff, right? And everybody's like, okay, this quarter we will only ship small stuff. Okay, then ship small stuff. But as long as it's not asked from you to ship small impact stuff, look for the big impact stuff. And the rest, I don't care. And now you might be like, haha, yeah, Büşra, there's a trap. Who tells me that the thing that I'm looking at is high impact? When I talk to my manager or my most favorite stakeholders, then they will say, this is high impact, so we will build this. But I have a different opinion on that. So what shall we do? That's the magic word, opinion. So what shall we do? Check your confidence. That's what we do. Prioritization is a lot about impact and confidence than about scores. Okay, scores are means to an end. However, I will show you an example with scoring. So let's say it's an impact, confidence, ease scoring. I personally like to add risk always as well, but let's just go with impact, confidence, ease, and urgency. Risk and urgency are my favorites. Let's say we expect an impact of 8, whatever that means, but we're not really sure about it. It's going to be super easy to build. Well, I don't care if it's going to be super easy to build or not. If we are not sure that the impact is really going to be 8, maybe we should experiment. I say maybe because maybe the experiment looks like we build, ship, and see what happens. Okay, it's still fair, but make it an experiment. Okay, that's what I mean. Like confidence can help you decide what to do with the stuff, with the items that somebody said it's going to have high impact. And how can we do that? How can we decide or define which confidence level we have? You can either use the concepts that exist, like the confidence meter by Itamar Gilad, or you can create your own confidence system. That's something that I did as well, or we did as well in one of the companies that I worked in the past. We had our own confidence system and said, hey, we think this doesn't have so much value as you say, because it's only market research that suggested it, for example. The result that we get when we add confidence into our thinking is categories. Because now we can say, if this was a spreadsheet and you'd have a filter here, you could now filter for all the things that need to be planned to be built, because we have enough information, we just want to ship it. Everything that is rejected so that you can delete it, everything where you need to run experiments. Like, these are categories now that you can handle, right? And the beauty of that is what we have right now. Now we have a list of categorized either roadmap items or backlog items of opportunities or solutions, or maybe even already broken down into backlog items. And I said backlog. We are finally on the backlog level. Yay! If you remember the very, very, very last line of the cascade, that's where we are now. And what do we do now? We sort it. I don't care which framework you take here as well. If you just simply do money in, money out, if you do resources in, resources out. That depends on your company and what's important. And then we decide which of these will be executed. Like what are we going to build next? And how do we do that? Well, that's the thing that I believe backlog prioritization is art. If we've done our job so far, we're going to have a pretty solid list anyway. Yeah, I know, if we've done all of that so far. Okay, anyway, I see it. Even though I don't see you folks on the screen, I see you kind of. And here's the part where I say, look, there is no one right or wrong or specific way how now on the backlog level you can prioritize the items. That really depends on the situation. There will be politics. You will have to promise a stakeholder something so that they leave you alone and for the rest of the year. There will be tech debt or design debt that you have to clean up. There will be, a balance of how much delivery versus discovery how do we have in here. There will be so many things. Like, there is no right or wrong way or one way of prioritizing a backlog. And at the end of the day, you will use your intuition to make the final call. And then you blend it all and then go with it. It's going to be fine. At the end of the day, it's going to be fine. Okay, no worries. Good. We've come to the point of conclusion. We've gone through the whole cascade. One thing to mention is we've done it like very waterfally. That's for the presentation, but it's a back and forth. It's always constantly a back and forth, right? And it's a loop. It has to feed itself so that we as a company, as an organization, can understand if we are really doing the right things or not. And at the end, when we say prioritization, we only think of these levels, right? Roadmap and backlog. But in fact, prioritization actually, what happened? Boom, technical issue. Prioritization starts here. Effective prioritization indeed starts there. So, concluding, prioritization is difficult and it's gonna stay difficult no matter what any consultant in the world says. If I ever write something like that on LinkedIn, please remind me of my own presentation. But then effective prioritization starts with strategic choices from very long term to near term, always filters against strategic goals, zooms in and out, goes back and forth, what I just mentioned, right? And does not only rely on sorting. Painful prioritization happens when strategic focus isn't set, goals are not clear, strategic decisions change too often, or everything above is actually great, but it's not well communicated. It's a mistake that I made in the past as well. So here's my ask to the audience. This is not a presentation to blame anyone. This is not blaming the product leader for being weak in making strategic decisions. This is a really difficult thing to do. It's also not an excuse for product managers to say, we're not able to prioritize well because you didn't make strategic choices. It's not. You still have to find your ways to make it work. What I'm suggesting here is to play it as a team sport so that product leaders can make choices and narrow down options to enable effective prioritization. And if they're stuck, that product managers help them by showing options and make suggestions to help leadership to make choices. They might not necessarily end up with your suggestions because they have to still figure out a lot of stuff that is going around the company. But if they don't get anything from you, they will not be able to make any decision that will help you. So get out of prioritization pain through strategic prioritization as a joint effort. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I love the way how you structured this whole presentation. I want to remind people we have some time for questions, so please don't be shy. Don't be the typical Belgian person. Ask their questions, so put it in the chat so that I can ask it directly. One of the things I see a lot, or that where people struggle with, is you go to this webinar where they explain you a lot of great things. You go to lunch. After lunch, you go back to your desk, and you don't know where to start. Could you maybe give a bit of advice to all those product folk that don't know exactly where to start when they're back at their desk?
Sure. It's about meeting people where they are, right? So I don't have a fixed rule because it depends on where you are in the company with your leader and so on and so forth. But that's already a starting point, figuring that out. What is it that creates so much pain for me and my team? Is it because I'm not sure what we should do in a long-term view? Is it because we have to do too many things at the same time, which is always the case, right? There's no company that does not have too many things to do at the same time. So that's point number one. Point number two is, if you have a good relation with your manager, sit down and talk about this. Talk about this thing that you have heard today, and you would like to figure it out together with your manager, where you could meet and what would help you to make easier prioritization decisions, and what will help your manager to make better strategic choices. Try to create this team setup with your manager, because at the end of the day, you are a team with your manager. That's something that you could do on a very high level. On a more concrete level, if you are in an environment where it's very, very difficult to make those strategic choices, or you make strategic choices, but then, the investors come in and throw basically everything out of the window again, kind of thing. What I help teams in those situations to do is create their own bubble of strategic choices. So from everything that what's happening in your company, based on conversations, based on the patterns that happens with, I don't know, the investors or whoever, based on the things that your brain is a pattern recognition algorithm itself. It doesn't need ChatGPT for that. But you can also ask Claude or Chat for that, right? And then figure out your own strategic system. Okay, that means if I understand that correctly, then they actually want us to achieve XYZ in this year. And that means for us achieving XYZ this quarter. That means for us, we have to focus on these and these and these topics in the area that we're working on. And now we have to make it defendable. That means we have to find the arguments, ideally data evidence, or secondary the qualitative relationship style things that happen in the company, right? And then make it defensible why you think it's the right way when somebody asks. And as long as nobody asks, which is the third type of organization that is very, very toxic, then just do what you think is right. And it's amazing how we can always find a good reason why we did the thing that we did. Just make sure not to build fluff. Again, build stuff that has high impact. That is very, very important. Prioritization is about impact and your confidence in that impact. And if you're not in a position to build up confidence through experiments, then you will have to build up confidence through the qualitative relationship style stuff.
Okay, very clear. I think you touched upon something very interesting that I see a lot as well, is that when you want to commit to a strategy, even for a short amount of time, there is that fear of, yes, but what if that next big opportunity is arising and now I already committed to this strategy? I will miss this opportunity, or I will be forced to ignore it. How do you recommend people to handle that kind of situation? And do you even see in practice that it's really a problem, or is it more only in our head?
A mix of both. It can turn into a problem. It can be just in our heads. So again, we want to be learning organizations. That means we want to do something, ship it, and see if it works or not. At the same time, when an opportunity arises, we don't want to fall into shiny object syndrome. You set yourself a goal. Does this opportunity, like for the midterm, does this opportunity help you achieve the goal, yes or no? If you'd say yes, then challenge, will it help you in your long-term strategy as well? Or is it just noise? What's the alternative to that, right? Don't jump into the opportunity only because you think right now that it's great and you should not miss it, because maybe you should miss it. Maybe it's more important to, not just maybe, this is what I see, right? So, okay, very clear example. In the past, I worked at a company that was changing priorities every second month. I'm not kidding. The management locked themselves down for 2 days in a management offsite, and we already knew, okay, they are going to a management offsite. They will come back with new priorities. Okay, let's only do easy stuff. When we start with the big stuff, we will not be able to finish it anyway, because in 2 months they're gonna tell us something else. This is not catching an opportunity. This is randomness, and this is a clear signal that they are not aware of their goals. And if you do that too, then you are not aware of your goals. Then that's the part where you should start thinking again. If you believe this is really a good opportunity, well, then figure it out first. Get your evidence if that's really a good opportunity compared to what you're doing right now. If it's really worth switching everything. ChatGPT moment, right? In 2022, November 2022. Well, we have all ditched our roadmaps and started from scratch. Okay, that's a moment, yes. But is it this kind of a moment for every new shiny object that comes along that you believe is an opportunity? And potentially it is an opportunity, but should you really jump on it? It's all about goals in that moment.
Okay, clear. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I have a character of really pointing to the wounds and then like, you know.
That's why we are all here for. I think
Cool.
that's very helpful. I see that Angelina had a similar question. Let me know, Angelina, if we didn't answer or address your question fully, then let us know, and then we can still go back to it. Otherwise, I would like to go to the question of Murat, who says, what if the company's strategy is not clear? So it might be there, but it's not very clear. And is there any right questions to ask to help define that strategy?
Mm-hmm. So if the company strategy, what if company strategy even it's not clear? So it is there, but it's not clear, if I understand correct. Okay, then, okay, that's gonna sound mean, but to make it clear. No, so concrete answer to that is, so if the strategy on the company level is not clear, then we are talking about your bubble. I see your director of product on the director of product level. That means to me that you do have the space to create your product strategy that can be clearer than the company strategy. And that is the part that your team needs more than it needs the company strategy itself. It needs the product strategy and then the explanation how this connects to the company strategy. And in this, you can even be clear with the team and say like, hey, the company strategy tells us this and this and that. This is what we know. The rest is something that we have to figure out. And based on the things that we have to figure out, this is the data that I have. This is the trends that I see, or we in the management round see. These are the hypotheses that we have, and that's why we believe that this is the product strategy that we should pursue. So this is your space to create the bubble that I mentioned on the execution level, right? You can also create that bubble, that protecting bubble, in the management round. And then, of course, the risk is one day the management on the company level will be clearer So now it depends, right? Micro is huge, so maybe it never will be clearer. Then it's great, and continue with your bubble. If it becomes clearer, then you can adjust your bubble. But it's easier to adjust something that you have than create something from scratch. And also, what you could do is to make it clearer for yourself is ask questions like, how do we know that we were right? So what will tell me that we have done our job right? Will we grow market share with that? Really? Okay, where, in which country, in which way? Through doing what? Is it more important for us to gain new customers, or more important to make more money with the existing customers? Like the questions that you have in your head, ask them. They will probably say, to many of them, they will say, we don't know. And then it's fine. Then you know that they don't know. And then you have your answer and can add it to your own product strategy bubble.
All right.
Hope this helps. It's a difficult topic, I know.
It's a very difficult topic. I can certainly relate to that.
And of course, everybody can feel free to reach out on LinkedIn and to continue the discussion and ask questions, of course, as always, right? I'm usually pretty approachable unless I have a phase where I'm very, very much under fire. Then I might ignore my LinkedIn inbox, but I definitely come back to you at one point.
All right. Let's take one more question, because I see that there was one more question in the chat. It's a big one, so we will have to break it down. I made the experience that it's a very practical way to give leadership team a relation between initiative based on the strategy, what markets to focus next, which are the expected end product outcomes, what are the trade-offs as a result.
So the leaders can better decide where to focus for now and why we do so. So all of us are in the boat, and there is nearly no chance of opinion-based overruling because everybody has a buy-in. What's your take on that? Have you advice there? I think you rounded it up very, very well, and I think this also should help Murat before. That's a very, very good one. I mean, that plays into the part that I mentioned the very, very last slide, right? So help them, make them suggestions. Like you can play it through for them and give them options instead of that. This is anyway always a good tactic. Instead of saying, let's do this, give them options. This is option 1. I think this could be valuable because la la la, risk is whatever. Option 2, valuable because la, risk is whatever. Option 3, and so on. And then help them make them those choices. Show them the relation between the initiatives that you're doing, or the relation between the outcomes that you're trying to create for your customers, and the connection between that and the business goals. Like, show them your thinking and express it, and give them your suggestion. These are the 4 options. I believe we should go with option 2 because blah. Right? And help them make that decision and make it clearer, even if it's not clear enough for now.
Okay.
I really like that.
Cool. I think it's a very nice note to end this webinar on. I would like to thank everybody that's joined in, but I would also certainly like to thank you, Büşra, to be willing to talk. I found it very interesting. I hope you all find it very interesting as well, and that I can expect all of you in our next webinar.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for the invitation. And again, if you have more questions or would like to exchange more, just reach out on LinkedIn. I'm the one with the star. I've got my star back. So I'm the one with the star.
All right. Thank you.